Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Thriving Thoughts. I'm your host, Dr. Sherri. Hey friends, if we've ever needed thriving thoughts, right now is the time. And today's episode is sure to give you a boost in the face of the darkest times. My guest today, Gina Dobmeier. She started something called the I Am Crowned Project. You can find all those links in the show notes for sure. And you'll want to follow her and connect with her. We dive right in this episode. We talk about the grieving process and how that looks so different from person to person, from woman to woman. Man, Gina gets deep into talking about just being stripped of ourselves. I am not going to give anything else away, but listen, y'all are going to want to be prepared to kind of really lean into this message and really ask yourself this question as you listen. Am I ready to come face to face with myself so that I can grow, prosper, and thrive? Hey, Gina, thank you for joining me for the show today. This is take two for all of you women listening.
Hello, Dr. Sherri. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm so honored to have you on the show. And I think one of the things that drew me to you, Gina, which I know is going to draw the women listening to you as well, is your heart for women who have experienced loss. And I'm just going to dive right in because that's how you and I connected on Instagram.
Yes.
And you've made some really fantastic videos, but you have this. And if you don't want to start here, that's fine. You can just back me up. You can say, I don't want to talk about that. Can we talk about that later? But you have a concept called, or a project called the I Am Crowned Project.
Yes.
And that is how you and I first connected. So can you tell us what that's about? Like, what's your why behind that? What it is?
Yes, absolutely. So I Am Crowned Project is something that was birthed from my own personal loss 6 years ago from our stillborn baby girl. Her name is Annabelle. And so I was 6.5 months along and delivered her. And then,
now, can I stop you there for a sec?
Yes.
Because when you say delivered her, did you like have to go through labor and everything?
Yes. It's a 24-hour process. So it's very unknown. You know, every situation is so different. So there may be some women on here that either know someone or maybe personally went through it. And I'm just sharing from my own story.
Sure.
I've talked to several women who have similar stories, and everyone's just so different. So there could be, the doctors prep you for anything could go wrong. So it's all unknown. And so the 24-hour, I say 24-hour to deliver, and then you're in the hospital for about like a 48-hour, because then the process is after you deliver, you have a choice, you know, to be with your baby, and they treat it again, every hospital is different, but we got to hold Annabelle, got to bathe her, got to clothe her. And then it was a real experience. Just like, I have 2 kids already. So I have, my oldest is 11, and then my youngest is 8. I'm sorry. She just turned 9.
Okay.
so it was, having children already, you know, it's just this, I had that kid to connect to, but it really, they made it feel that real. So it was as if your baby was, the only difference is your baby is not living. And so it's a very traumatic experience. And so
now let me ask you a question. Did you know going into the 24-hour process, going into the delivery process, that Annabelle was not alive?
Yes. So I did know. We were already having complications within my pregnancy about 4 months along.
Okay.
And we were just doing everything we could to keep her and to, to watch every little detail. And it just got to a point where fluid was building up around her heart and in her brain. And she wasn't able to get the proper nutrition through. Just so many complications were coming up. And so I went through an amniocentesis. I hope I just said that right. It's where they stick the needle in your stomach and they draw fluid from the baby, because they're going to start all the testing to do if I had to go into pre-labor or all those possibilities. And it was right after I went through that I asked the doctor, I said, is there a possibility that I could lose my baby? And he said, yes, there is a possibility. And it was over that weekend. My next appointment with another specialist is when we went in. And I had already at that time had so many ultrasounds that I knew exactly what I was looking for, if my baby was alive or not. And so when we went to go put, have the ultrasound, I was like, oh my gosh, she has passed. I knew instantly. And it was before the doctor even got in there. Like I was just with the nurse.
I was going to ask you if you had that, if you knew instinctively that she was gone.
Yeah. I think the whole weekend leading up to that visit, I think my faith was so strong. My faith was so immersed in this is going to be a miracle. And the miracle is that she's going to live. And so the miracle that happened was what happened within me and my family. And so after that loss, I Am Crown Project was birthed, and it was about exactly a year later. I'd went through that experience and everything, in the hospital. So when I delivered her, I say, Annabelle woke us up to living. And so is how her life gave us a new life. That's my husband.
So beautiful.
It was an instant. I know that, again, this is not everyone's experience, and my heart is, I say I have I had a moment in the hospital room of heaven on earth. It was the closest I felt to heaven. Of what life was beyond what we could see, because it was the only way I could get through holding my stillborn baby. And so, but after the hospital, my entire world crumbled. And so that was the part that my pain woke me up to all the inner parts of me, of depression and suicidal thoughts, and want to divorce my husband, and just these mountains that just seemed too big, and this pain that was too strong to bear, that either can rip you open in all aspects to heal those wounds, or you can collapse and it really can destroy every part of you. And so the destroying process, I firmly believe, needs to happen either way, because in order to rebuild, you have to tear everything down. And that is what happened. We lost everything after that. So when I say everything, it was financially, it was marriage, it was my mental health went down the drain. We went living with my parents. Just so much crumbled, and it was truly rebuilding our career. So we left where we had worked pretty much my whole life. But my adult life since I was like 19. And so we were in full-time ministry. And so anyway, I'm getting so many aspects.
Well, no, let me just, because I've got some things on my mind, and I'm sure the listeners do. I'm bursting with questions. Yeah. And I'm trying to decipher, which ones might be the most, which ones might resonate the most with women who are listening right now. And I have no way of knowing that other than to trust God to help me ask the right questions. Right. But, to me, as you're describing this, it describes something that I've been, a truth that I've been talking about. And it's an unpleasant, it's a non-beautiful, non-desired truth.
Yes.
That to truly thrive, to have that rebirthing experience, to have an experience of coming to know who you are, everything has to be totally stripped.
Yes.
Oh, everything has to be destroyed. Like you think about refurbishing a piece of furniture. Like
yes.
It's totally
I've done it. I've refurbished it.
Right. It's like stripped, it's finished, sanded down, y'all. Here's what's beautiful to me. And this is where I'm kind of drawing a parallel that I want to make sure we highlight, that, and you haven't even gotten to what the rebirth has been like, or even what the destruction or the stripping was like, which, that's up to you if you want to talk about either of those. But, your, the word destroy that you use, the destruction and the death of you that led to the rebirth and the saving of you, parallels Annabelle's life.
Yes.
I mean, right? Like
God, yes.
She came and she was totally stripped. She's not destroyed, but her life, her physical life here was taken.
Right.
Yeah. And then she left so that could give birth to something new in you guys as a family. And just, holy cow, like I'm just blown away.
Oh my gosh. It was, when I left the hospital, I say it was like someone literally stripped me naked. It felt like when I walked out into every normality of like walking back into a grocery store, walking back to go to a friend's house, or dropping my kids off at school, or those type of things, everything felt like I was walking around naked. I felt stripped down to, in fact, that was my words when I left the hospital. I said, God, rid me of myself. I belong to you. Like, if you need to strip me bare, if that's what I have to do to move forward, because in those times, you don't see a way of nothing seems clear. Everything's clouded. There's a heavy weight. There's everything. It seems so foggy and unknown that all the questions come up. And I learned too that the questions are okay. I was told so many times not to question anything, but I was like, no,
say that.
Don't stop the questions, because the questions lead you to all the unknown parts that begin to uncover truth, that begin to uncover the depth of you. And I think that's a lot. That's the part of, I mean, if I would be lying if I would say, did I want to run and hide and curl up? Yes, absolutely. Did I want to just pretend and put the mask back on that I had worn all my life? Yes. All of that was so comfortable, but I knew none of that was going to reveal truth in my life. I just knew instantly this was something I was going to have to face, and we are going to have to confront at some point in our life.
Yeah.
I mean, some people could go all life and confront something on their deathbed, but I was like, if I am faced with this moment right now, that's bringing me to my knees, this is my responsibility to face, nobody else. Yeah. And I have to now tear myself open to become, this vulnerable and true, becoming like the butterfly, right? The butterfly example.
Right.
We're in this cocoon, and then we're taking on a new form. I say the new normal. It's a new normal that you begin within this journey that you never asked for. We all have those moments, right? Of unplanned uncertainty and
but I think there's a catalyst. There's something for each of us, and I think it's different for each of us, that helps us to lean into that helps us to not lean in, helps us to surrender to that, to say, okay, like I'm ready to be like stripped, like, cause that is here's the truth. The truth is, not only do we live in a society, but we live in a mindset, a collective mindset, that pain and suffering are bad. Yes. They're not good. Right. Yes. And pain and suffering are necessary for growth. They're necessary to thrive. You can't bloom, grow, or prosper unless you get stripped, unless you come face to face with yourself. And so that the catalyst, when that happens for everybody, is different. And it sounds like for you, it was the loss of Annabelle. And so I don't know. I just needed to make that point for the women listening, that, that it's okay if you're not there. Absolutely. Right? Like, if you haven't come to that place where you're like, oh yeah, I want to be ripped open, because let's face it, that just sounds nuts. Right. But when you get there, you'll know it. It'll hit you right between the eyes, and you'll be ready for it. Yeah.
I wrote, so when I started I Am Crowned project, at first was a blog. And one of my blogs that I write is Life Begins at Surrender. And so
So true.
when you get to that point of surrender and say your arms, my picture of surrendering is opening your arms as wide as they go and just crying out to whoever the higher power of God or universe, like just whatever is beyond what you could say, and say, I'm choosing to surrender in this moment. And that was truly my example of falling to my knees and saying, I can't bear this pain anymore. And so that's when life began. And I started blogging, and writing was my therapy before I ever had therapy. So you have these tools that just start to come out of us. You're like, I don't know why I'm doing, but this is truly saving my life right now. And then it was little things like I bought myself a bike, and if I didn't get out in some way, I was going to suffocate in suicide, and depression was going to overtake me. And so we have these tools around us, and now it's grabbing onto whatever is within our reach. So after I was blogging for a couple of years, I went through then 3 years ago, another loss. So we tried again for another baby. And this time it was our baby boy, Ethan. And so actually 3 years this August. So anyway, so we, again, you go through all this healing process. We had rebuilt where our family we felt like we were at this place to just, our faith was there to try again.
To do it. Yeah.
Here we go. And so, if we get 4.5 months along, and I went through, now he was a late term miscarriage, and I went through a DNC process with him. It was a procedure done. So that same thing, like I got, well, not same thing, but it was a completely different experience, but it was still that process of a DNC you do get put under. So they give you amnesia, or wait, what is it? No.
Anesthesia.
Anesthesia.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, hopefully then it'll give you amnesia too, so you won't remember the experience.
Exactly. Oh man. But anyway, so that experience woke me up then too. So after I was blogging, I'd had these necklaces, and they were crown necklaces that I'd had for all throughout when I was blogging, but I never did anything with them. It was just
like, okay, so wait, you purchased a bunch of crown necklaces, and you did nothing with them.
Did nothing with them. Like all I was doing was just writing, because it was the only thing I was the only energy I had within me to do anything. So that the necklaces seemed like so far, and it seems so impossible to try to wrap around another story. I was still feeling so many parts of myself that I didn't see clear. When you're in those stages of grief and you're just like, okay, I think I'm at this certain place, and then you get hit again with something, you're like, no, my energy is not there. And you have to give yourself permission.
Let me ask you a question about that, because in my experience, in my personal experience, here's one of the truths that I believe is that we never truly overcome. Okay. That we're always overcoming, right? We will always be overcoming until we die. Like that's just our human existence. That's our human experience. And so I have a real problem, which I'm not going to go into right now, but I have a real problem with people who sell success stories, right? Because I just don't believe in them. Anyway,
I'm with
the
you.
point behind that is, So the point behind that being, you get hit with the first loss, and then you have this experience of surrender and this experience that, I've got to be ripped open. I've got to be destroyed so I can be rebirthed. And then you get to a place of a new normal or a place of experienced stability, so to speak, so that you had hoped to try again, to go down this road again. And so then you did. And then this experience happened. Now, my guess is, if you're anything like if your experience is anything similar to mine, my guess is you don't learn necessarily the same things again, that process that is similar, a similar loss, opens up other things about yourself that maybe you hadn't seen before in the first time. Is that the case? Is that what happened with you?
100%. 100%. And it was so Ethan's loss ripped my husband's heart right open. So he was in 100% survival mode of providing for our family, trying to get us back on our feet again while I was going through all my mental depression, working through all that. And then Ethan was this wake up call for me to then take territory in a sense where I'm trying to figure out how to word this, but almost like you take the lead it showed this perfect example of a marriage of when one is weak, one is strong. So we aren't going to be grieving the same way. It was just this,
right.
We turned from being competitive with each other to then becoming synced with one another as truly as this picture of a relationship, of having to say, there's no right or wrong way here, but my husband's heart is being ripped open now. And now I'm going to rise to the occasion of taking the lead in a sense. I don't know another way to say it, but well,
it's kind of like a dance, right?
That's what my husband says. It's a dance.
Right. Because one person leads the way and, one person leads with the hand and the hand on the waist or the shoulder or whatever. And the other person just follows. And then it's time, you turn, and then it's time for a new step. Yeah. And that's the beauty of partnership. That's the beauty of connection. That's how we're wired, because man, oh man, if we were left to the dance by ourselves, we would just fall down.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And how beautiful would that be? Oh my gosh. But yeah, it pulled out another depth of strength. It revealed all the layers. It was like, okay, I didn't have the strength to do with Annabelle. All of a sudden, Ethan gave us the strength. So the meaning of Ethan is steady, strong, consistent. And it really was this, you have a choice here to, again, the fork in the road of what grief somewhat does to you is it forces you to look within and beyond what you can see right now. And so it really was those conversations. And it was like, okay, are we going to choose to grow deeper, or again, let this tear us apart? And so we just had to keep making those hard choices and having those hard conversations. So I let my husband go. I was said, this is a choice that you have to make within your own self. And we finally separated. We're individuals just as much as we are here collectively with one another. And his process was completely different than mine. And it showed me that grief doesn't have one way. There's not one. We don't all wear the same mask. And to be able to respect everyone as individuals within their own process. And so that's why I do what I do, is because I truly don't think, unless you've walked through it yourself, you begin to reveal your own process, which makes room for allowing other people to have their own process. And nothing being forced or nothing being rushed. You can't rush the process, and you can't force it either. And so you'll hit.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And I think that our culture, especially, Western culture, says that there is a specified way to grieve, and there is a specified appropriate length of bereavement, which is just absurd.
It is.
There's even bereavement disorder in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which means you're doing it wrong.
Wow.
Which is like, oh my goodness. Yeah. Right.
No.
There in Eastern cultures, people literally put on, black for a month, or literally, like in biblical times, wear sackcloth and ashes. Like if we did that in Western culture, we'd be diagnosed with a little bit more than bereavement disorder. I can tell you that.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah. So I think I have one of my best friend, her husband, just 2 months ago, 2.5, 3 months ago, passed away.
Wow.
Very young, in his 40s, early 40s, brain cancer. And, what's the right way to grieve?
Oh
What's
my
the right way to grieve with losing a child? Like there is no right way. And
No.
so I think that that's a lie that we believe. And so that threatens us. And so it makes us
Mhm.
put on a mask. And I think it makes us not be able to surrender to that stuff that we need to work through
Yes.
for the sake of appearing to grieve the right way. Or
Yes.
I don't even know what that means, but do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, that was exactly what so I think with Ethan, that was what we finally came to this acceptance of this is life, period.
Yeah.
It's like, there is no overcoming, like you said, there is no picture perfect. There, like,
Right.
like truly letting go of all the stigmas, of all the expectations, of all the definitions, of all the, step-by-step process of how-tos. We completely let all of that go. And we allowed grief to be this partner and friend and say, okay, whatever we got today is how we're going to show up. And so it's
grief is a teacher.
It's the loss of control. And I think how many of us control, oh my gosh, I know as a mom, I want to control everything. But
sure.
You go, how good of that would, what good would that do? Would that allow my kids to be who they are or who I want them to be? Control is nothing but it stifles us in growth as well. So it turns the other way, and we ask the question, what can we control as my response to things? I can control the things that I do with myself, and
that's right.
I can control where my mind goes, and I can control,
and that's it.
That's it.
Right. That's it.
And so when you're hit with something else, because the question is, it's not a matter of if, or it just is, like when it happens, then you're going to learn from the previous time, and what you learned, you'll pick up, you'll take on with you to the next, and then to the next. And you allow the process to continue versus there's no ending, so I kind of got rid of the whole, there's end in sight, or there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
The light at the end of the tunnel. Which is that message of overcoming. So, hey, what did you have all these necklaces? Okay. When was the moment when you realized I've got these necklaces, I have to do something with them? What happened?
So I go with the perspective of my babies have never left me. They just have taken on a different form of life.
Yeah.
And so they're always still growing. They're always still with me. So I truly see them in everything I do. And so Ethan and Annabelle are pretty much like, Mom, we need you to keep doing the work that you're doing and to helping people. And this will make me cry, but just to help people to wake up within their own pain, because I feel they're just so proud of my husband and I and their sisters. And so that's what Ethan was pretty much like, are you going to do anything with those necklaces? So
yeah,
I was like, well, it makes sense now. This crown is a life crowned in glory. It's a life beyond what we can see. It's a life of hope, it's a life of beauty. And that's what grief is here to do. It's our teacher. They're not, the passing of someone, of any kind of husband, any sort of loss of a job, a home, like security, all those kind of things aren't there just to shove aside at all. There's meaning in all of it. And so I just we packaged up these necklaces. And so I take them to the hospital once a year. I've connected with a few organizations around the Valley. I'm in Arizona. So I've connected with a few organizations that when they need some, I give them to them. And so they get dispersed in all different kinds of ways. And then you could personally buy them on my site that I created, crownproject.com. And then I just had one this week where, people that go through a loss of a child, they'll contact me and then I mail them off. So
I love this.
I give one away as well. Every time someone buys one, I save one to give away. And so I'm in contact with people all the time. It's just incredible when you open yourself up to something in a giving aspect, how much people come in your path that you don't even
Yeah.
know. And one of the, in
Right.
fact, a cool story, I was at a coffee shop all by myself, but coffee shops, sometimes you're sitting so close, you could hear other people's conversations, and
Yeah.
it was
Not anymore,
I know,
but yeah.
true. This one was pretty, right? That's funny. Right now, there's a
I've
pause.
forgotten already what that's like to be on top of other people in a coffee shop. Anyway, go ahead.
I know. Okay, so I was at a coffee shop and I could overhear this woman's conversation, and had gone through a loss of a baby, and it, all the change that's taking place. And I said, I don't mean to be eavesdropping, but my ears perk up every time I hear loss. Every time I hear, it's like you could see it. When you open, again, that's the beauty of allowing yourself to rip open, is you could see hurt, you could see pain, you have empathy for other people. And so it not only brings healing within your life, but you're just a kinder person. You're able to see you could see the store clerk, you could see when that woman's in pain or that man's in pain, and be able to stop and just say, hey, I see you, and compliment and give them a smile.
Right.
All those kind gestures that go a very long way. So anyway, I stopped, and the girl was like looking at me like, wait, what? Like, how did you know? And I said, I'm not a weirdo. I promise I'm not crazy. But I want to give you a necklace. And so it's things like that. It allows me to.
So do you just keep them with you? So
this time I didn't have one on me, but there are some times where I do.
Yeah.
And this time,
and so is there like a little message that comes with the necklace?
Yes. So I have a card. So one side says, you are not alone. And on the other side, it's just a really short sentence about, I wish I had one on me right now, but it's about the imprints on your heart that never leave you. And this is your time to step into your own bravery story. So I think we all have a brave story within us. And it's just a matter of time for us to wake up to that brave story, to say, I'm stronger than what I know. I didn't know I had it in me to overcome. In a sense, I caught myself right there.
Yeah, I know.
Here I am to surrender and rise above.
Yeah. And learn and grow from this. Yeah. Yeah.
So it opened us up to introduce grief to our girls. So which
I was going to ask you, Gina, here's the other thing. I think there's a misconception. It's not a misconception. Let me just call it what it is. There's a lie that, and it's based in fear and love, not ignorance.
Yeah.
So there is a lie that parents believe that I have to protect my children from life.
Yeah.
And, which is just, it's almost like, there's a difference between protecting your children from life and then just like throwing them to the wolves and being, like dust yourself off and figure it out. Right. There's a difference there.
Right.
But there is a middle ground of this teacher, of life as teacher, of life experiences as teacher, that I think that as parents, we would have the potential to rob our children from those learning and formative experiences if we do not share with them the real things that we're experiencing in language that they understand.
Yes.
Even research shows, and I'll get to this in a second, but just from the scientific standpoint, research shows kids have brilliant imaginations, right?
Yes.
So if you don't give them the information, if you don't give them the real truth of the information, like let's say they have a terminal illness, the child does, right? And the parents are like, I don't want to tell them. Well, if they don't have the real information, they're going to make stuff up. And the stuff that they make up is not going to be helpful to them. So it's better to be truthful with them, to be honest, to share this grief as teacher. So with that, like, what's that experience been like for your girls? Because they're older, they're certainly old enough to understand loss.
It was, so unknown territory. So back to Annabelle's story, we were in the hospital. At that time, my oldest was only 5 and my youngest was 3. But my oldest, especially, she was at my parents' house, and my mom's like, we weren't going to have them come to the hospital because we were raised with, I mean, both my husband and I were very shielded within our life.
Yeah.
So we were very much like asking nurses, what do we do? What do we say? We have kids. And they told us to, so we were like, we can't tell you what to do, but we have families that don't share. And then we have families that do. And we just will tell you the ones that do have this connection that you cannot separate. And so
that's right.
All of a sudden my mom called the hospital and said, Gina, Cadence, my oldest is Cadence. And she said, she is following me around. I cannot get away from her. Like, I go to close my door. She knows something's up. She has asked, I need to see my mom. I have to see my mom. And so she said, she just needs to see you in the hospital. Just make sure everything's okay. So we were like, okay, bring them up here. Here we go. Right. I have no clue what we're going to say.
Right.
The two, Cadence and Miley, come in, and I kid you not, my 5-year-old Cadence at the time said, where is my sister? And I was like, oh my gosh, it was just my parents, brought them in the room, and it was the 4 of us. And my 3-year-old Miley at 3 just crawled up and wanted to hold me. And so we said, well, and Cadence had said, did you have her? And I said, yes. She said, did you meet her? And I said, yes, we did. We met her. And she said, well, that's not fair. She's my sister. I get to meet her too. And that's not fair if I don't get to meet her. Where is she? And we said, she's here in this room. Before you want to see her? And she said, yes. And then I said, okay, before you do, Daddy and I want to talk to you. And so I lost it at that point. I mean, I was,
oh gosh, I cannot imagine.
Hot mess. And so Miley and Cadence are just listening, and my husband just had these words. Wow. My oldest is an animal lover, and said, hey, you know how you love animals, right? And she said, yeah. She's like, well, think of a turtle. And he said, when you see a turtle, the outward is what? And she said, it's shell. And he said, where does a turtle hide? Like when it needs protection, like where does it go? And she said, it goes inside the turtle. So he said the shell is the protection, right? So when we show you Annabelle, what you're going to see is nothing but her shell. Who she is and where she is her spirit is no longer here. So her internal, like who she is, she's gone into a place where she just needs to be, but what you see is just going to be her shell. And so he said, are you ready? And she said, Daddy, is it going to be scary? He said, no, it's not going to be scary. So he took her over, and he asked Miley, he said, do you want to see Annabelle? And Miley said, I want to just be with Mommy and just be with her. And it's honestly been that way since from years moving forward. They both have these two different realities and worlds. And so anyway, Ryan took Cadence over to see Annabelle, and he said, before I show you her, I want you to close your eyes and get a picture of her living. And so he said, close your eyes, and when you get your picture, you tell me. And then when you get it, that's when you'll open up your eyes. And so he said, okay, Dad. So she goes, Dad, I am closing my eyes. I don't have anything yet. He said, oh, it's okay. We'll sit here as long as we can until you get this picture. And it was just a matter of seconds. Like, I don't know, 30 seconds goes by, and she goes, Dad, I got a picture. I see her. She's playing on a playground, and named very, very specifics. She loves a teeter-totter. She loves the slide. And we were like, teeter-totter. We have a friend somewhere with the teeter-totter. Like, oh my gosh, and right. A long story short, he said, you could open your eyes now. And when she opened her eyes, she just saw nothing but life and beauty. And she said, oh my gosh, my sister is beautiful. Jumped out of his arms, opened the door, ran into the hallway, told all of our family, and said, you have to come see my sister. You have to meet her. Her name's Annabelle. And she's been she went to kindergarten. I mean, I have story after story. She's had dreams. Like you said, we left no room for gaps. Right. For them to figure out, like, our kids are so sensitive. So a lot of, so many people told me, don't cry in front of your kids. Don't do these things. And my question was, how do you not how can I not?
Right. How do you not?
When my kids have emotion.
How can I be inauthentic with my kids? Yeah.
I said, when they have emotion, what do I do with them? Do I just kick them out and say, no, sorry, that's not welcome here? I don't do that. But they can welcome my emotion. I'm not sitting here like close. I just was like, no, I cannot do that. And I just can't do that. So I just didn't listen to anyone. I literally was like, I'll be the rebel in grief, I guess you could say, and just go for all the things that people are telling me not to do, because it showed that there was no air. Like truly, as a 3-year-old little girl, like she has been leading all the way up to 9 years old. She has been an anchor of laughter in our world. So we allow her to take on who she is. And our oldest 11-year-old, she has this spiritual interconnection. I mean, in kindergarten, she went to class. When she went back to school, she couldn't write. And her teacher said she had a writing assignment and she couldn't write. And her teacher said, okay, Cadence, can you draw for me? And she drew a train. She was on a train with Annabelle. And it opened up this conversation. The teacher was so moved by it, but she said, can I share this? And she got to share about her sister. Wow. And it opened up. I mean, you wouldn't believe the stories of kids saying, my grandpa just died, or my mom lost a baby.
Right.
Or, just right. So at school, the conversations that happened because you were honest and open. Yeah. It was seriously like, and I know I think those are the challenges in the unknown that my husband and I were so scared. I would say fear gripped us to no end of how we did not have the words, but I think because we allowed ourselves to also let go and surrender and say, we may not know. And I think that's the part where we stifle ourselves or we get stuck, is we hinder those places because we get gripped with fear. And to allow fear also to say, hey, you're welcome here and you have every right to feel afraid right now. But I'm also going to move past this and say, I'm just going to go for it. It's the fear of failure. It's the fear of all those places that we just don't allow ourselves. So grief truly has woke us up to allow for all the things that seem impossible to become possible. So it has been a teacher, and we encourage people. And I think I've heard all kinds of stories where parents force those type of conversations. And so I just want to make this known that it's not anything you're going to have to force. It's your kids. When you allow your place to go to the depth of pain, you'll see how your kids are going to also welcome in. And it's anything forced isn't beautiful, right? Like, right. That's true. We really do have to allow for things to unfold. And I think when you go in with that mindset of, this will take on a whole other form than what you can see. That's the beauty of the unknown. And that's the part of the unknown process is it becomes that dance, and you're creating. You allow the creation to take place of taking on what you have to do next, because you're not going to have the answers. Right. Well, and not everything is polished. It can't be. Actually, everything found in nature, everything that is beautiful has some sort of flaw. The only things that are identical or pristine are man-made. 100. Right? Oh my God, so good. Like, so good. So if we think about, just take us, for example, like all of us have like one side of our body that's a little bit longer than the other. Yes. Or like for us women, I'm just going to say it, one boob is a little bigger than the other, right? Like, okay, unless it's man-made and they're perfect, right? Yes. So, but I think there's an Eastern concept called wabi-sabi. Which speaks to the beauty of imperfection. And that just kind of what you were talking about, like being willing to not wait for stuff. Like that's the lie that we're faced with. We're faced with the lie that says everything has to be polished before we can be of effect, before we can have impact, before we can matter. Everything has to be polished. And I think the beauty comes in our
willingness and openness to display humanity, to display our humanity, to not have it all together, to be willing to say, oh, wait, you know what? Maybe I said that. I could have said that in a different way.
Yes.
But not saying it because you haven't figured out how to say it yet.
Oh my God, Dr. Sherri, you literally put everything in such a beautiful way of saying, yes, it was, there's no such thing as perfection. Just let it go.
Yeah.
Literally let it go. Allow yourself. That's the beauty of vulnerability.
Right.
Is to have those hard conversations. It's allowing yourself to be seen in the imperfection. And there's not enough of that. So if you're not, I'm just speaking to the woman on your podcast right now, be that one, go be that one, be the rebel in grief in your world. And I promise, when I stepped into taking on what everyone was telling me to not to do, and I started to say, oh, I don't have the energy for that. I don't have the energy to not cry, but I do have energy to cry. I'm going to just let and trust that process to take on what it needs to. And it has really been such a beautiful dance. Like you said, I love the analogy of it's a dance. And so allowing the ebb and flow of life to be your teacher and to, I will just say the support, the safe place for me wasn't there in the beginning. And so I think that's when you find your people and you find it's okay. It hurts to let go of people that you thought were going to be there, you know, but I think that's the part where are you a Brene Brown lover? I don't read Brene Brown.
I do. I'm not, I'm so weird, Gina. I'm almost resistant to the big superstars because they're so big, but I'm not saying I don't like some of the stuff that they say.
Yes. Well,
I never want to be that big.
Oh, I see. She's been such a teacher for me. And she just says to dare greatly. And she talks about the inner critic, the man in the arena by Theodore Roosevelt. And I have it on my phone screen as a reminder because it says it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer or deeds could have done them better. The critic belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. And so if you look it up, ma'am. It's just, if you're not so I had to take on that mindset. If you're not in the arena with me, you have no say so. If you choose to live life differently, I'm not judging you.
That's right.
But allow me to have my own process and to go to those places of fully surrendering and letting go. And so anyway, I just wanted to share that because she says it all the time. That's beautiful. So look it up. Theodore.
Yeah, she does. I have heard her. I watched her Netflix special. I mean, I'm not a complete, ghost when it comes to this stuff, but So, okay, Gina, tell us, how can the listeners get in touch with you? Maybe they've got a woman in mind that they want to send a necklace to, or maybe they're listening and they want a necklace for themselves.
Yeah.
So how do they connect with you? How do they reach out to you? How do they order a necklace?
Okay. So I have a website, GinaDobmeier.com, and that will also, the store is on there, IamCrownProject.com, and you'll see some blogs that I've written on there. I have a ton of blogs that I'm compiling right now. So I'm in the process of working on a project with all my blogs that I have written, but I also am on Instagram. I am crowned. So on Instagram, it's the I Am Crowned Project, and on Facebook, I Am Crowned Project page. And then Gina Dobmeier on Facebook and on Instagram. And I just started a community called the Pain Gangster.
Okay.
It's for people that are ready to face their pain and allow their pain to help them grow. And so we welcome the process of pain. And so I really, my heart is to really connect to women, men, families, like my husband and I are in this together. And so we're open to conversations. And so they could direct message me, however we can connect. I'm so open to all of it. So it all leads, if you find me on one platform.
Wonderful.
So, and I just have a
Yeah. And we'll be sure to include all of the links.
Yeah.
What's that?
I just came out with a podcast too, the Pain Gangster podcast. So, yeah.
And where can we find that, Gina?
On all like Apple, all the podcast platforms.
Okay.
So on Apple Podcast, on Simplecast, I believe, or I don't know all of them.
Overcast.
iHeartRadio or iHeart something.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
I just
all right, great. We will include. Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome. So we'll include all of the links there. All right, Gina, before we sign off today, I ask all of my guests this one question, that if there is one truth that you want the women listening to remember at the end of this conversation, when this conversation is over, one thing you want them to remember, what would that be?
So the one thing I have is everything is within you. I think we look so much on the external. We don't look enough on the internal. So if it wasn't for writing within the pen and paper in my hand or the bike, all the internal me just stepping outside, I would not have overcome depression. And so I found so many resources within myself. And I had to dig so deep to say, wow, within me is a strength I never knew. Within me is a bravery that I never knew. Within me is a muscle within my mind to think on thriving thoughts, right? Like I have the power within me to I keep saying overcome, but there are the layers that pop up that you do have to confront. And it just keeps leading to the next layer that you have to then keep overcoming every layer that pops up. So everything you have is within you. That's my truth. And
so true.
You are not alone. I say that on every single thing. Every time you think you're alone, you're not. You are not alone. So
you're like every other guest. By the end of the show, they have like 10 million truths they want to share. And I'm like, you don't know how to follow instructions. I asked you for one. And yet another episode where we go out laughing. I hope you all have laughed, cried, and really found some beautiful truths in this message today with my friend Gina. Please be sure to connect with her and follow her. I know she'd love to chat with you. And hey, we all know somebody who's in need of one of those I Am Crowned necklaces. Reach out to her today. Support another woman in business, not just in business, but in passion, in her why, and in her truth, and in sharing hope and healing with other women and thriving thoughts. If you found this episode helpful, please do share it with a friend. And would you go ahead, if you are an Apple Podcast listener, and write a quick review for this episode with Gina, or simply give the Thriving Thoughts podcast 5 stars. We would be so grateful for your highest rating so that we can continue to reach other women. And until next week, as always, speak truth over the lies so you can thrive in any and every circumstance.